Hello boys, welcome back to another interesting session of video tutorials, and this session is meant for class 12th biology boys, and this is for 15th September 2020. We have been discussing about transgenic animals. What are the advantages of it? In what way trans biotechnology will help us to improve the transgenic animals, be it in study of diseases, be it in development of normal physiology, be it in the form of biological products such as milk proteins, vaccine safety, and chemical safety testing. So, as part of it, in this session, we will be studying about another interesting topic called molecular diagnostics. We were discussing some time back about gene therapy. Similarly, this molecular diagnosis also is a technique that is used to diagnose, try to understand and reason out why particular disease exists and monitor the disease, its future, its symptoms, etc. etc. Detect the risk, what are the risks involved in that, and decide which therapies will work best for individual patients. So this is molecular diagnosis. So basically it is very effective treatment of a disease. It helps in early diagnosis and understanding its pathophysiology. So pathology plus physiology. So pathology is study of pathogens, diseases. So pathology and physiology, properties of the tissues, is very important. Why should we use this? This is very effective, as we said. But the problem is conventional methods are there, like serum testing, you say blood test, urine test, like this. After the pathologist analyzes the serum and the urine, he will come to know that particular person is suffering with a particular disease and how far the pathogens are there. But then early detection is not possible. By the time we get the blood test and urine test, the infection is so severe that number of pathogens are uncountable. Even if it's countable, it is beyond our reach. Hence, it will be too late. Hence, sometimes the pathogens take so much of time to get detected. Even after repeated blood tests and urine analysis, there won't be any trace of pathogen, even though the pathogens are inside. So the conventional methods fail in detecting certain pathogens. So there comes our molecular diagnostics. So it is very important that we detect the pathogens and the diseases, the characteristics of the diseases at an early phase so that we can help the patient to recover fast. So early diagnosis, this is what we aim at. Early diagnosis is possible with advanced molecular diagnostics like rDNA technology, which we have been studying, and thanks to the plasmid. Polymerase chain reaction, PCR, gene of interest will be polymerized. And another one, enzyme linked immunosorbent assay, ELISA. This is normally 1 mark question. Expand. PCR and ELISA from this chapter is 1 mark question. So E for enzyme, L for linked, I for immuno, S for sorbent, A for assay. So enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. So conventional methods detect the presence of pathogens like bacteria and virus when disease is well established. That is the problem. Already it is well established and produced disease symptoms and pathogen numbers very high in the body. So it is too late. That is the reason why we require this. This will serve, see, whether be it rDNA technology or PCR or ELISA, they are all serve the purpose of early diagnosis. That is the main thing. And presence of a pathogen like a bacteria, virus is normally suspected only when the pathogen has produced a symptom. See, every pathogen, once it goes to the host, it produces certain symptoms. So based on these symptoms, we can detect. by the time the concentration of pathogen is already very high in the body, then only symptoms will come. So it is very difficult to fight the enemy when the enemy number goes up. However, very low concentration of bacteria or virus at a time when the symptoms of the disease are not yet visible can be detected by amplification of their nucleic acid by PCR, polymerase chain reaction. So that is the main advantage with the PCR, amplification of the nucleic acids of the pathogens when pathogens are very low in number. Second, the pathogens have not yet increased the number, plus symptoms are not shown fully, blown up. It's not blown up. So that is how the PCR comes into the handy. And detect HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. Again, this is an expansion. He will ask you. In a suspected AIDS case, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome patients. Detect mutations in genes. Mutations are sudden changes, I said, in genes in suspected cancer patients. And detect many genetic disorders. This is what I started off this chapter with that. So PCR requires single-stranded DNA or RNA tagged with radioactive molecule to hybridize complementary DNA in clones. Following hybridization, the next step, autoradiography will be done. So radiography, clone with mutation, mutated gene will not appear in photographic film. Probe will not have complementarity with mutated gene. That's how the advantage. So PCR is now routinely used to detect human immunovirus in suspected AIDS patients. It is being used to detect mutations in genes in suspected cancer patients too. It is a powerful technique to identify many other genetic disorders. A single-stranded DNA or RNA tagged with radioactive molecule, it's called probe. You see, probe is a radioactive molecule, is allowed to hybridize to its complementarity DNA in a clone of cells, followed by detection using autoradiography. The clone having the muted gene will hence not appear on the photographic film because the probe will not have complementarity with the mutated gene. That is the reason. And then ELISA, of course. ELISA is based on the principle of antigen-antibody interaction. So we are coming to this, how we are increasing the pathogen with the PCR technique. You can see the clinical sample, we are collecting it. So we are extracting the DNA, amplified target DNA. You can see those red ones increasing in this. And then detection system. What exactly is the disease with which it suffers? What is the pathogen that is present? This is how PCR helps in early detection. And then we come to the next one, ELISA. It is basically antigen-antibody interaction. Even though antigen and antibody both are proteins, but we know that any presence of antigens or antibodies would indicate the possible disease. So infection by pathogen can be detected by the presence of antigens. So whenever there is a pathogen entry inside our body produces antigens. The antigens are, as I said, proteins or glycoproteins. And these can be detected in our blood or by detecting antibodies synthesized against the pathogen. So either antigen or antibody detection will help us to know the particular pathogens. So that is where the ELISA is helping. So it's another molecular diagnostics to detect antigen, foreign substance or pathogen. So antigen is foreign substance. It works on the principle antigen-antibody reaction. ELISA detects pathogen by presence of antigens or by antibodies synthesized against the pathogens. Hence, ELISA is of great help. So basically, in molecular diagnosis, we focus on rDNA technology, PCR, and ELISA. And what is the greatest advantage in this? Even before the disease becomes full-fledged, we'll be able to help in detecting what is the disease, what are the symptoms likely, all that, and we can make the patient to get cured quickly. And transgenic animals, we need to talk about some of the examples of these transgenic animals, like transgenic cattle. The only successful transfection technique in cattle is micro injection of fertilized ova, which may either be recovered surgically or may be obtained from ovaries extracted from slaughtered cows and cultured in vitro. The chief objectives of transgenic cattle production are, as I said yesterday, increased milk production, increased meat production, molecular farming, improved properties and proportions of casein in milk. Casein is a milk protein. Regulate content of lactose and butter in milk, and enhanced resistance to viral and bacterial pathogens. These are the various objectives that we have got in transgenic cattle. And transgenic mice, you can see here, mouse is the most preferred mammal for studies on gene transfer due to its many favorable features like short estrus cycle, gestation period, relatively short generation time, production of several offsprings per pregnancy, and convenient in vitro fertilization. So many, and of course successful culture of embryos in vitro at least for a period of time, production and maintenance of embryonic stem cell lines, availability of diverse array of genetic stocks, etc. So many advantages are there in transgenic mice. That's how we pick up this transgenic mice. As a result, the techniques of gene transfer and transgenic production have been developed using mice as models. Transgenic rabbits are quite promising for gene farming or molecular farming, which aims at the production of recoverable quantities of pharmaceutically or biologically important proteins encoded by the transgenes. The human genes encoding valuable proteins have been separately transferred into rabbits. These are interleukin 2, growth hormone, tissue plasminogen activator, alpha 1 antitrypsin, etc. So these are the various reasons that we take rabbits as our experimental models. So first transgenic animal was mouse, which contained gene for growth hormone. This enlarged mouse was known as super mouse. Pseudomonas foetida have been genetically engineered by introducing different strains of plasmid. It resulted in new genetically engineered bacterium that cleans the oil spills and hence called superbug. Why it's called superbug? It eats oils, oil-eating bug. That's why Pseudomonas foetida is known as superbug. So thanks to the biotechnology which is making all this possible. Is there anything in this, anything negative? Of course, there are some ethical issues. There are some patency rules. There may be a biopiracy and of course biowar also. All these interesting things